This is the Saros XR. It is the first robot that has actually kept my rugs dry while pulling dust and crumbs out of the corners without me babysitting it. I live with a cat and a mix of hardwood and a couple of area rugs, and I am not the person who enjoys spending time vacuuming and mopping after work. This is a robot vacuum and mop combo made for people like me who want genuinely hands-off cleaning and still care about tidy floors. If you have pets, long hair, or kids who track in grit, or you just hate the noise and hassle of constant cleanup, this kind of device fits right into daily life in a way a regular vacuum does not. Design matters a lot more than it gets credit for. The Saros XR is a low-profile disc that is just over 3 inches tall, which means it slides under my couch, under the bed, and under my dining chairs without getting stuck. That height makes a bigger difference than any flashy spec sheet. It also looks clean and simple. Smooth black finish, rounded edges, no creaky plastic feel. I do not mind seeing it parked in the living room. The dock is larger than the robot. It takes a committed spot on the floor, and you will want a bit of clearance on both sides. The finish on the dock is glossy and it feels like an appliance, not a toy. That bigger footprint buys you convenience. The robot empties its dustbin into the dock, and the mop pads get washed and then dried with hot air, which keeps smells from building up. I care far more about that than saving a few inches of space. My first day with it, I went through the application setup. It connects to my wireless internet, maps the apartment, and lets me label rooms and draw keep-out zones. The initial walkthrough has more steps than a simple plug and start machine. You name rooms, you decide no mop zones for rugs, you choose cleaning modes, and you set schedules. That learning curve is real. The instructions inside the application are clear, and once I did it one time, I did not need to think about it again. I can now tell it to clean just the kitchen after dinner, or do the whole place while I am out. It also links with Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant, which I used a couple of times to start a quick clean with my voice. But most of the time I use the application, because the maps and options are right there. Responsiveness is solid. Mapping on the first run took a little while, but after that it moves with confidence and does not bump around blindly. Commands from the application trigger almost immediately. If I tap a spot clean, it pivots and goes there. If I pause it to pick up a sock, it resumes without losing its place. I do not feel like I am wrestling with it, and that is rare with robot vacuums. Let me talk about performance because that is where my opinion changed from skeptical to impressed. The suction is strong. The number I saw was about 20,000 pascals. I cannot measure that, but I can see what it leaves behind, and it is very little. On my low-pile rug in the living room, it pulls up cat hair and fine dust that my upright misses if I rush. On hardwood, it picks up stray litter, crumbs, and the annoying grit you feel near entryways. There is a little side brush on a flexible arm that extends to reach into corners and along walls, and it actually works. I tested it by sprinkling dry rice and litter into the corner behind my trash can, and it got almost all of it in one pass. I did a sand test by rubbing a pinch into the rug fibers by the doorway. Nothing I have owned gets every grain out in a single pass. The Saros XR brought the rug back to what I would call presentable in everyday light, and on a second pass it improved again. The mop is the part I usually roll my eyes at with robots. Most of them drag a damp cloth and leave streaks. This one uses 2 spinning pads that apply pressure. More important, the pads lift up when it senses a rug, and they stay lifted when crossing onto carpet. I stood there and watched it roll onto my entry rug with the pads raised and the bristles turning, which is exactly what I want. After a full kitchen and hallway mop, the pads return to the dock, get washed with hot water, and then dried. That hot air drying step is the difference between fresh and funky. A day later, there is no sour cloth smell, and I do not have to rinse anything by hand after a long day. Obstacle avoidance is smarter than I expected. The navigation system recognizes a wide range of objects. The application even shows thumbnail photos of what it saw, which helps me understand why it detoured or paused. I scattered socks, a small toy, and a charging brick on the floor. It eased around most things and did not try to swallow the sock. Thin cables remain a weak spot. I let a phone cable dangle loose and it caught it once. That is not unique to this robot, but it is something to know. I started tossing my cables onto a table before a scheduled run, and that solved it. Real-life tests told me more than any chart. Day 1, I let it map and then sent it to clean under the bed, a place I rarely bother with. It came back with a full bin of dust and long hair, and the brush was not choked. The main brush system, which they call a DuoDivide brush, resists tangles. After a week, I only had to pull off a couple of strands. Day 2, I knocked over a bit of dry cat food in the kitchen. I drew a quick zone over that tile area in the application, told it to mop and vacuum that zone, and it took care of it while I made coffee. Day 3, I purposely left a few tiny splashes of soy sauce on the floor after dinner. The mop pads scrubbed those off. Then the robot went back to wash the pads, and then returned to finish the hallway. I did not touch a handle or a bucket. Day 4, I ran it in the evening while watching a show. The cleaning noise is surprisingly low. I could hear it, but it did not drown out dialogue. The only loud moment is the dustbin emptying at the dock. It is a burst of air for about 10 seconds and then silence again. A specific use case where it shines is my weekly reset. I run a full mapped clean every Sunday morning. It does the entire apartment, lifts its mops when it hits the rug, returns at intervals to wash the pads, and empties its bin on its own. I take a shower and make breakfast. When I come back, the floors are dry, the air smells a little fresher, and there are no tumbleweeds of cat hair under the couch. I used to spend almost an hour doing a less thorough job with a stick vacuum and a spray mop. Now I mostly do a quick spot wipe for sauces, and a deeper hand mop only when I spill something sticky. There are a few clever touches that make the daily experience better. The application lets me set no-mop zones on my rugs and no-go zones for cable-heavy corners near my desk. It also supports voice assistance for quick starts or to send it back to the dock, which I use when I forget to schedule. There is a front camera, and you can check a live view to see what it is doing, talk through a tiny speaker, or take a snapshot. I tried it more for curiosity than security, and I have to admit, checking in on my cat napping on the rug from work was oddly comforting. I also appreciate the little status page in the application that tells me when to refill the clean water tank and when to empty the dirty one. I wish the clean water tank were bigger. Mopping my whole place every day means I refill it every couple of days. If you have a larger home, you will be refilling more often. On the flip side, I barely ever have to touch the dust bag in the dock. There are compromises. The dock is bulky. If you live in a tiny studio, giving up that floor space might feel like a tax. The initial setup will feel like a lot if you do not enjoy tinkering with settings. I like control, so I appreciated it, but I know people who would rather press one button and be done. Cable avoidance is good but not perfect. Keep thin cords off the floor and you will be fine. Everything else, from socks to a dropped shirt sleeve, it handled better than any robot I have had in my home. What matters is how much I need to think about cleaning after the first week. The answer, for me, is not much. The Saros XR gets into tight spaces because of that low profile. It edges well because of that little extending brush. It lifts its mop on rugs, and it keeps the pads clean with hot water and hot air drying. It empties its own bin. It stays out of trouble most of the time. It is quiet enough that I do not plan my day around it. I spend less time untangling hair because the brush design resists it. These are real-life wins that add up. If you want a robot that you can set up once, schedule, and forget, especially if you share a home with pets or messy humans, this belongs on your short list. If you hate dealing with wet, smelly mop pads, the self-washing and drying is worth it. If you are sensitive to noise, this is easier to live with than most. If your space is cable-heavy and your patience for setup is low, you may be a little frustrated at the start, but it settles into a routine quickly. I am going to keep using it because it does exactly what I wanted a robot to do. It keeps my apartment feeling fresh with very little work from me. I walk barefoot in the kitchen again without stepping on grit. The rugs look cleaner without me breaking out the big vacuum every other day. It is not magic. It is just competent, consistent, and smart in the right ways. I'll leave the details about the Saros XR in the comments for you to check out. See you in the next video.